everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope your week is off to a great start. I'm excited to bring you guys another video. We're going to talk all about Mercury's retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. I'm calling this video Actions Speak Louder Than Words. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos coming out on the channel. All right, so guys, I'm very excited to chat with you about this transit. Maybe you guys caught my previous video where I talked about Mercury's ingress into Sagittarius, and I brought you up to the Mercury retrograde point, but I think now's a really good time to take a look at the second part of the transit, give you guys my hot takes on how this is going to be impacting all of us collectively, and if you stay tuned till the end of the video, I'll be touching on the 12 signs. All right, so we've got this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. We are actually going to see the retrograde take place from December 13th, 2023, all the way through January 1st, 2024. Now, as you're watching this in the month of December, we're already in the shadows. You guys are already feeling the effects of it. So some of these transits are gonna feel a bit like deja vu, and it's gonna kind of bleed into the latter part of, January of 2024 before we finally kind of complete this cycle. If you have any personal planets between 18 and 22 degrees of Sagittarius, you will be impacted by the Mercury retrograde. So that means any of the first 10 degrees of Capricorn and really the last degrees of Sagittarius. Check your sun, moon, or rising, and also check any personal planets in these particular degrees because they'll be affected by the retrograde. Now, this is going to be impacting those of you guys who are ruled by Mercury the most. So my Geminis and Virgo risings, as Mercury goes retrograde, you feel the effects pretty strongly, and it's a time to really focus on turning inward. And also Capricorns and Sagittariuses, you guys will be feeling this as well because it's going to be going through these personal signs for you. Now, Mercury retrograde in general, especially in Capricorn, there's some very specific themes here. One, I think, is about working through communication challenges. It's pretty, common when we see Mercury retrograde. This is a theme. We have a Mercury retrograde about every 3 times every year, so it's not an unusual event. And retrogrades are often associated, especially Mercury retrogrades, with miscommunications, delays, misunderstandings, and in the sign of Capricorn, it can manifest as difficulties in expressing our emotions or challenges in conveying our thoughts in a practical or organized or sometimes even a timely manner. Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, and it is an earth sign, so it's very logical, very practical, matter of fact, and it's a Saturn-based sign. So timelines, deadlines are going to be real big themes when we're looking at a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So this is obviously going to be touching on personal concerns. Because Capricorn is an earth sign, it's really practical, it's really focused on structure. During this period, it's a time to review and reevaluate our plans, our goals, and sometimes even strategies, especially in career or business matters. Some of you guys might say, yeah, of course, it's the end of the year, reevaluating, looking at what we've been able to accomplish in 2023 as we prepare for 2024. But I think in general, actually, this particular transit is going to have a lot of people thinking about whether or not they want to go into 2024 and make a career change. Part of the reason is because it's in harmony with Saturn. Part of the reason is also because it's going to dip back into Sagittarius, which is going to be more about education. So whether you're thinking about taking a few refresher courses or maybe learning a trade, going back to school, finishing a degree, these are some themes that we might see for some people with this Mercury retrograde just generally. Now, this is obviously a reflective time because, Capricorn is a sign that values discipline and responsibility. And Mercury, when it turns retrograde in this sign, it's time for introspection and reevaluation of our personal and professional responsibilities. So even if you're somebody who isn't working, maybe you're retired or you're taking a break, this can be a time of reflecting on what your goals are, what you've achieved, and what you're hoping to achieve in the future. After all, Capricorn represents the top part of the zodiac. It's about looking down on everything and assessing where you're kind of situated in regards to your personal goals and your reputation. Technology and travel hiccups happen. That's a huge thing with Mercury retrograde because Mercury rules this topic. So as Mercury retrogrades, we'd oftentimes see communication and technological glitches. We also see during the shadow period, so like the last 2 weeks or so, it might have been coming up. And we might notice that there's issues with electronic devices, travel plans, and scheduling. Now, I'll get into that, but I especially think that's the case this time around. So I'm just going to tell everybody preemptively, buying tickets for travel this month, right? Really big travel month with holidays. Consider, insurance on some of your trips. Consider getting refundable options, paying a little bit more. Be advised that there can also be increase in cost of travel because of the aspects to Jupiter. My recommendation is back stuff up, read the details, look at the fine print, really think everything over. And even though Mercury retrograde can be a little agitating, this one in particular is going to make several contacts with Jupiter, which is going to give us a little bit of positivity and I think better opportunity for future planning. Now, when you prepare for a retrograde in general, right, one of the big things that I always say is just double check communication. So try to be clear and concise with your communication, although it's going to be challenging. Double check emails, messages, and important documents to avoid any misunderstandings. Review and reflect, right? Retrogrades are about reviewing, reflecting, revising, returning, reassessing, regressing. So all the re's are going to come up, and we can use this time to reevaluate and revise our goals or our plans, reflecting on our responsibilities and make the necessary adjustments to ensure long-term success. Me personally, having a Capricorn stellium myself, 4 natal planets in Capricorn, this retrograde is already kicking my ass, but I'm trying to remain optimistic, and I know that it's for a really significant positive change. So I'm finding myself really working with like time frames and schedules and reassessing schedules and planning things out in advance to make sure that I can meet some of my long-term goals. So don't be afraid to go back to something or reassess whether or not you want to return to something. You might find something that's missing, or you might find that there is like a diamond in the rough where you can return and renew something that can actually be really practical and very valuable in future use. Back up your data, okay? Please back up your data because Mercury retrograde can be associated with technological glitches. It's advised to back up any important data or files. In the sign of Capricorn, I definitely think this could be about work files, work emails, making sure that you have everything that you need for your year-end statements, maybe in preparation for getting ready to do your taxes in the spring of 2024. In general, though, I could see this as being maybe some changes to our work schedule, some changes maybe with authority figures at work. We're definitely going to see some government slowdown and some challenges with authority. But to be prepared, right, we can have a backup. And so sometimes we see during Mercury retrogrades, we see leaks, we see hacks, we see systems shut down. So if you don't want to be dealing with that, I really recommend backing your stuff up. But more than anything, and I think any major Capricorn placement person would tell you this, it's all about being patient, because Capricorn realizes the importance of taking your time. Like wine, things get better with age. So the longer that you take to work through this process over the next couple of weeks between now and the end of January, it may lead to you being a little bit more successful in the Capricorn area of your chart. So don't jump the gun, take your time and really assess your goals. Understand that delays and hiccups may occur, and just be patient and try to adapt during this period. Now, some things to consider for you guys. I think I've used this reference before in other videos, but for me, retrogrades are kind of like opening the garage door, putting your arm around your passenger seat, looking in your rearview mirror and backing up, right? Kind of looking back and seeing where you're going so you don't hit anything. Retrogrades are kind of the same thing. So we're assessing where we're going. We need to return, or we need to look back to figure out where it is that we need to go. So you might find yourself during this retrograde looking at what you left behind, maybe what you lost, maybe something that you forgot. And it can also be about us reevaluating situations where maybe we were a little too optimistic because Mercury is going to retrograde back into Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, is expansive, it's adventurous, it's all about, experiences and travel and philosophy, and also like blind optimism sometimes. It's a stark contrast to Capricorn Saturn energy. That's a realist, that can also be a bit of a ball buster. So I definitely feel like we're going to see that shift where when we go back from Capricorn into Sagittarius, we're going to start to realize like, oh, maybe I, was a little too overzealous, or maybe I overscheduled myself, or I packed too many things into, my routine this week, or there was a sense of really needing to walk back some of our goals and reassess whether or not we can get them achieved in a timely fashion. I feel like this is also about reflecting on what we believe in, what we've learned, where we've traveled. It can be a wonderful time for reconnecting with mentors and gurus and teachers. Some might be reviewing or backtracking in what was lost, like I said, especially because we're going to see a number of aspects at 24 degrees, which deals with things that are spiritual, hidden, secretive, otherworldly. It can be about dream interpretation. It can also be about getting in touch with our higher selves. So there is this kind of mystical, magical side of that 24 degrees, but we're going to see several squares to Neptune, which can also be a little confusing. But just to keep it simple, because Capricorn is about career goals and responsibilities or leadership, as we see Mercury retrograde back into Sag, I think some of us are going to be reevaluating who should be in charge, or do I have a handle on this? How can I learn more? How do I shift gears in terms of my faith and my belief system so that way I can feel more capable maybe of being able to take on life's biggest challenges? Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn is currently direct in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn would be the dispositor of this Mercury retrograde, at least until it dips back into Sag. The reason why the retrograde is in Capricorn and not Sagittarius is because the retrograde actually starts in Capricorn. So it's going to affect both signs, but you're going to hear that, the retrograde itself is in Capricorn. So while it's hanging out at 8 to 0 degrees of Capricorn, we're looking at Saturn. What do I like about this? Well, I feel like this is giving us the opportunity to work with the sextile between Mercury and Saturn, at least until it dips back into Sagittarius. If we can be more goal-minded and be focusing on timing and planning and responsibility, likely we're going to receive some kind of support from Saturn that's basically helping us build towards our dreams or make sense of things that might seem foggy or obscure. The sextile is a lazy aspect, so it's something that you have to kind of really work with. You have to do the reorganization in the Capricorn area of your chart to be able to reap the benefits of Saturn. So look at Capricorn and also Pisces to see that sextile in action. This last week, we've seen in the retrograde shadow, Mercury already form a sextile to Saturn. So we're already kind of working with this energy. And Saturn's also about discipline, even though it might not feel like it in Pisces. It's about discipline and it's about our commitment to something. So I like that there is this nice blend between Mercury and a sign that's about getting something done or managing something. And Saturn can be obviously struggling a little bit in the sign of Pisces because sometimes it doesn't really know which end is up, or it's kind of getting hit with some Neptunian kind of qualities. After all, Neptune's in the same sign. I also feel like, Pisces being a Jupiterian sign, that's the traditional ruler of Pisces, is really fascinating because first we're going to see a square to Neptune in the retrograde shadow where there is false, foggy, or misleading information. We're feeling confused or upside down. Then we're going to see a sextile to Saturn where we're kind of stabilizing and kind of getting our sea legs. And then we're going to see a trine to Jupiter where we expand and we learn. But Saturn in a Jupiterian sign, trines to Jupiter, trines are Jupiter energies. Believe it or not, a lot of this for me is like this Mercury retrograde is like cutting through the fog and realizing that we can only do so much in a practical, logical way, that without faith or like a solid practice or culture or our belief system or some sense of like higher education, higher knowing, we can't proceed forward. So we can't just move forward in a logical sense. Like we need a little bit of faith along the way. So prayers, meditation, maybe connecting to our culture, connecting to teachers, mentors, gurus can be really helpful throughout this process. We're going to also see that, Mercury is in a superior position. When Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius, it's in its fall. So basically it has a tendency sometimes to think so broadly that it misses some of the details. That's going to be especially true with the squares to Neptune. There's going to be stuff that we overlook. But we also can have a tendency for information to be blown out of proportion or maybe telling tall tales, especially with those squares to Neptune. So I do feel like, you know, on one hand, it's challenging, but on the other hand, so much of 2023 Sagittarius season with Mercury, with the Sun, with Mars in the sign that is about truth, right? And getting out there in the bigger picture of life. And, you know, sometimes it can be about global trends. It's all coming down and squaring Saturn and squaring Neptune. So this movement of, you know, Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Sagittarius, the pursuit of the truth or information, or I think a lot of this is going to be justice. I think it's going to be justice for, you know, professors and educators and travelers and people who are involved in, you know, cultural themes, are all pushing on Saturn and Neptune, basically saying, like, you can't hide any longer. So this is the season of disclosure. There's a lot of disclosure that's going to come on. I think that, you know, this is about significant information being brought to light. It's about exposing what's hidden, what's secretive, what has been falsely represented, or misleading situations. Neptune does deal with global health. It also deals with video, films, videos, photos, viruses, sickness, immigration, falsehood, drugs, prisons, hospitals. So I think I remember saying to you guys in previous videos that, you know, as we come into this Mercury retrograde, Mercury's got to go through this process of being like, I have information, hold up, wait, let me go back and let me double check my sources, and then I'm going to return, and somewhere around the Kazemi point, it'll deliver that. Could it mean that, you know, in Capricorn, that certain governments are walking back some of their statements, some of their data, some of their figures? Does it mean that there's going to be some kind of leaks or things that are being released that are being assessed by professionals, or, you know, maybe people who have the opportunity to relay this information to the world? Yes, I do think that. And we're already seeing some of that in the shadow. And there's some really, really, really unusual aspects revolving around this particular retrograde. For me, right, and I'm trying to see the silver lining here, is that there are 3 trines to Jupiter. And so while Mercury is in Capricorn, you're going to experience 3 trines to Jupiter in Taurus. Earth trines bring practical, physical progress and change. We've got Mercury, the messenger. This is also about the mind, emails, contracts, conversations, meetings at work about what? Future growth, right? Jupiter and Uranus are in the sign of Taurus. And future projections with money, with banking, with wealth, with resources, with food. And so it does lend energy to, you know, really positive news kind of coming in. But I think this is more about where we're getting our mind focused about taking action, and getting on track with investing in ourselves and really asking ourselves, you know, is my time best spent here, you know, in this company or in this job? Is this my responsibility? You know, do I value this? So there's a lot of sorting and sifting through Mercury transits, but especially with the Mercury retrograde. And I think that, you know, this one in particular, okay, and this is what your girl is using this for, although it's back and forth over my Venus. Trine Jupiter, I'm asking myself, do I want this? Do I need this? Do I value this? And is this going to be useful to me? You may be doing the same thing. You may be finding that it's excellent for creating systems around finance, personal spending, spending plans, and also professional growth. So watch for those opportunities in the midst of the trines. It's interesting though, because with the first trine that we're experiencing, we're actually going to see this over the next couple of days. That's why I wanted to put this video out now. Is Mercury will trine Jupiter, and Jupiter is retrograde. Okay, so it's kind of still sleeping. It's going to wake up at the end of December, and Mercury is in a shadow. So we're already kind of like, okay, well, where do we want to be with future growth in the Taurus area of our life? When Mercury retrogrades, it's going to trine Jupiter, and Jupiter is going to be direct. So then we're going to be able to see sort of the positive growth or the abundance or some kind of optimism that's kind of developing. And then when Mercury goes direct, and this will be in January, you will see finally the 3rd trine where Mercury is direct and Jupiter is direct. Specifically globally, this is going to be about governments and policies and conversations and meetings about future economic growth. I do believe we're going to be hearing, I think this news has already come out, but there's going to be more interest hikes that we're going to see in January. Surprise, surprise, right? That can sometimes be where, you know, trines can get overblown. But I do think that we're going to see rising food costs. I do think we're also going to see more talk revolving around involvement with government and banks and organization of that. They may have some kind of information about something that might be kind of playing out, especially in the spring of 2024. If you know a little bit about astrology and you've looked at some of those transits, you know that the spring of 2024 is wild. And you're going to hear more and more throughout news outlets and the world over the next couple of weeks about this, coming recession. I do not believe it will be a recession. I believe it's going to be like a 1920s moment where we're going to see potentially a depression. And so what's happening, I think, with the retrograde is moving around information, backtracking things, talking about stuff, trying to move stuff around, trying to buy time. That's just my opinion. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then two, the other thing that is really fascinating for me is that Mercury will retrograde into another sign. So it's basically saying we're not just doing a change or a rearranging in one area of our life. We actually have to go back a house and sort something out there, or make a cut, or make a change, or reorganize something to be able to receive the goodies, right? When it comes back into Capricorn and it trines Jupiter and Taurus. So for some of you guys who are visual, I know this is a lot, but essentially you're more than just your sun sign, okay? This is why learning astrology is so important, because it can show you that we got a little bit of all of the 12 archetypes built into our horoscope. And even if you don't have any planets in Taurus or Sagittarius, best believe these transits are going to be activating houses. So you actually want to go back into Sagittarius and you want to assess, well, where was I too optimistic, or where did I not have all the facts, or where was I doing too much, and kind of losing track with the Neptune squares. Make that cut, make that change, especially when Mercury and Mars come into conjunction. And you'll see in the new year that it's going to help you actually move forward with some of your growth and some of your goals. Now, in the midst of this retrograde, we will see Mercury retrograde in conjunction with Mars. It'll happen at 24 degrees of Sagittarius, which obviously kind of mysterious, right? It's a Neptunian kind of Piscean degree 24. And this is why I think that we're going to hear more about things that have gone missing. I started seeing stuff already about information coming out, like obviously some of it's like TikTok and other stuff on social media, but about like that missing Malaysian flight. And they were putting out, I think it was like satellite imaging, I think it was, where they were showing like what was being picked up on the satellites and like the radar and like when it vanished, where it went. Whether or not that's true or not, there's some people speculating that plane like literally got lost into a portal. Hi, Mercury, Mars, right? Conjunction, airplanes returning back to, did it crash? Mercury, Mars. Did it go into the ocean, square Neptune, or did it go into another world? This is literally the astrology in action. So I'm watching to see if there's going to be more on some of that Malaysian flight stuff. Obviously, it's super crazy. And something that, I just laugh when I hear this stuff, because I'm like, it couldn't be more bang on. Obviously, you're going to hear some crazy conspiracy stuff as well, because Sagittarius can be about big stories and information and things that can seem kind of crazy. And then Neptune and Pisces is like something that we still don't know. So things can be really misleading. There can be lots of false information, intentional things, stuff that's manipulated. But that Mercury-Mars conjunction, oh my gosh, like I think about that and I go, you know what, this is going to be about battle cries. And that's something that came up to me when I was meditating on it. I was like, battle cries, Mercury, Mars, the mind, and also Mars being, action and the warrior. In Sagittarius, it can be tribal. It can be cultural practices revolving around that. It can be relating to some kind of foreign war. Now, it will trine the North Node in Aries, and I feel like that's my favorite aspect of that conjunction, is that the square to Neptune is like hopelessly and gloriously confusing, but the trine to the North Node is basically encouraging us to be brave, to really tap into that inner masculinity, to that inner warrior. And I can think of a couple things that remind me of that. That's already happening in the shadow. Number one, okay, I'm going to preface this by saying YouTube is becoming a very scary place. I'm having to become more and more and more careful about what I'm talking about. And I know that I've built a platform on being like, this is the research I do. This is how I connect it to astrology. I cannot tell you guys this enough. Please go follow me on Twitter. Go and follow me on x.com. Go and type in Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astro. The link is in my description. We'll probably plug this also somewhere in the video so you can see it. People are dropping off of YouTube, okay? I am really determined not to be one of those people, which is why I'm having to kind of watch what I'm saying. It's going against everything that, you know, I'm happy about doing or not doing. But I also know that if I walk the line and I continue to just relay the information in a very direct way without getting too much into details, a lot of you guys can read between the lines and you can also go and do your own research. But please understand that I can't really get into a lot of this stuff, but you can go and do any of that research that you want. Follow me on X. Two things that this reminds me of, the Mercury-Mars conjunction that's coming. One is Texas Attorney General Paxton, okay? He is now suing a major pharmaceutical company. You'll figure it out. For criminal liability. And let's just say that he can only sue one of them because one, it's not smart to sue the government because it'll take too long and it'll get blocked. Two, this one company is not protected by some of the government contracts. So it's almost laying the platform or laying the tracks for future potential legal strategy, Mercury-Mars in Sag, in regards to misleading information with pharmaceutical stuff, square to Neptune, okay? Protecting Texans against fake and misleading statements that were made by this pharmaceutical company. Remember Paxton? You may not know. I live in Texas now, and I'm pretty proud to live here, and I'm loving some of the things that I'm seeing because I'm starting to really feel good about making the decision to live in a state that is really focusing on trying to protect freedom and truth and also justice. And like Texas doesn't take any shit, so I'm loving it. But this is the same guy that the House Republicans tried to impeach after he started inquiries into said pharmaceutical company. They tried to knock it off. He was being impeached. He ended up fighting it. He came back recently at the end of November and he said, now I'm going to be suing this company. All right, so that's one, okay? Mercury, Mars, war cries, going up against false and misleading stuff. Two, literally this week, a whistleblower released information and tons of data from New Zealand on information pertaining to death numbers and the pandemic, and also noticing patterns that were kind of coming up and connecting the dots and releasing all of this. After this came out in recent days, his entire house was swarmed by police officers. They've taken him into custody. They're doing research. They're trying to decide whether or not they're going to release him. Yeah, I really feel like this is about people who are in positions of knowing truth, right? Mercury, Mars, and taking brave actions. And this is where I say actions speak louder than words. The irony, right, that Mercury is going to be conjunct Mars. But we're reflecting on, wait a second, why is somebody being attacked for saying something? Why is somebody being arrested for releasing information? Now, they're going to say that this was sensitive data, but most governments, right, we are paying taxes too, who go and they track this information. They're tracking health stuff now, who's taking what, how it's affecting people, how many people are filing for, reactions to medications. Many governments were behind the push for some of this stuff. And obviously Mars is connected to needles, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist, maybe an astrologer to figure this out. But this person is now being persecuted for doing a very brave thing and coming forward and bringing forth this information. New Zealanders, when I think of New Zealand, I think of the haka, and I have no connection to this culture whatsoever, but in recent years, I've seen like a lot of like hakas dances and stuff on social media that's been coming up, and you see really beautiful tributes at funerals, at weddings, at graduations. And at first you watch it and you're like, what the hell is going on? You see all of these men beating their chest and their tongues are coming out and their eyes are out and they're screaming and they're yelling. But Mercury Mars is the connecting the words and the actions, and it's about power, right? And it can be about the dance of war. Mars square Neptune can be about this intricate dance of the back and the forth and then this and the that, and the spiritual connection, the cultural connection, in wanting to kind of invoke spirits, right? And that's really what the haka was connected to. So the first hakas were actually performed by different New Zealand tribes as a war dance, and it was an ancestral war cry. It was performed in the battles for two reasons. Firstly, it was done to scare their opponents. The warriors would use aggression and facial expressions such as bulging eyes and poking out their tongues. they would grunt and cry in an intimidating way while beating and weaving their weapons. The second they did this for their own morale, they believed that if they were calling upon the god of war to win the battle, they were heavily choreographed and performed in time. It gave them courage and strength. And this type of haka is called the Peru haka. Now, over time, it's taken on new meanings. We don't just see it, for war cries. It's become very popular with soccer communities coming together, and it's a symbol for community strength. So I think it's really interesting that this is something that is kind of mirroring that, and we're starting to see some kind of bravery that's coming out of New Zealand. I'm hoping that this is going to encourage people to come together and find ways to be able to step up and share their frustration, their anger, but also their bravery for being able to push back against things that are sometimes spiritually or physically challenged. Now, I think about this unusual drop, like I said, back into Sagittarius. We see this sometimes with Mercury retrogrades. From time to time, it'll go into another sign. But once it goes into Sagittarius, it's going to be in its fall, which means it's losing its power. It's having a challenge being able to see things clearly. You guys really, 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 really want to watch for confusion, miscommunication, misunderstandings, weather advisories. Sagittarius does rule airplanes. So I do think that we're going to see some extreme weather. And if you're in a situation where you're being delayed in travel for such reasons, take it seriously. Watch for deception or lack of self-awareness. This is definitely going to be a lesson. Be very careful with signing, buying, or agreeing to things during the Mercury-Neptune square. I would say be very careful because it is possible that we're not seeing things clearly, or we're not seeing the full picture, or something that is being told to us is going to happen. We find out it's not happening. I literally had this happen this month, and I was just like, damn it. I knew that's what was going to happen, but I didn't think it would play out this way. For some of you guys, it might be excellent for returning back to school, rescheduling travel, reconnecting with mentors. And Mercury is going to go direct on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2024. Because Mercury will conjunct Mars, there's going to be this feeling of the mind being on fire. And remember that with Mercury retrograde, we might be returning to things that we got angry about. We might be apologizing for losing our cool. We might be apologizing for not having all of the information. And it's going to feel like our mind is on fire. So there can be a sense of having some mental overload. And watch also with those squares to Neptunes, not just for false and misleading information, but illusions, vague information, secret attacks, mental energy drains. Now, as of December 4th, the Pentagon confirms that U.S. war and commercial ships are under attack in the Red Sea. This is one of the most traveled shipping routes in the world. So I read this morning, being like Mercury, Mars, right? Square Neptune. News breaking out about, ships being attacked, and Neptune is water, and import and export is Sagittarius. Strategic attacks, right? Strategic attacks, false flag attacks to cause confusion and misunderstanding and things that are being falsely represented. Guys, global shipping or supply chain issues will likely come from this. And that means we're going to pay more money for stuff. That means we're going to be told there's shortages, there's delays, we can't get things because of X, Y, and Z that's happening somewhere where it's inhibiting us from being able to get our stuff that's being delivered by water. False attacks, especially by airplanes, and water. University attacks, religious culture wars, fear of spread of illness through travel, bad weather, misleading information relating to war, planes, and education. I don't want to get too much into this stuff, but let me just say this. Mars is generally illness in traditional astrology, okay? We didn't look past Saturn. So we could see this as fevers, death, right? Accidents. And we've got Mars that's in Sagittarius that's getting ready to square off with Neptune. It's already squared Saturn. In modern astrology, sickness can be more seen sometimes through Virgo or Mercury transits, or through Neptune. So I do feel like part of the Mercury retrograde is going to be having some intentional move or motive to delay transportation, airplanes. They'll say it's weather. They'll say it's, for illnesses. We've got this wave of fear going on because you have a bunch of kids right now in all parts of the world, from what I understand, but it's really becoming more prominent here in the United States, where they're saying that younger kids are getting pneumonia and they're having issues with white lung, which I think is weird. I'm not a doctor, but I know that people generally who have asbestos or have exposure to asbestos get this, or people who have potentially had exposure to certain medications make them more predisposed to having this particular kind of pneumonia. Mercury and Mars square Neptune, I think, is going to be, well, do we, limit travel to certain places? Do we try to, choke off certain travel points? Do we say that we can't go places? PTSD, 2020 PTSD of some of the stuff that was going on in the pandemic. And so will we start to see that happen with with airlines come the end of the month? Maybe. It's possible. But I also think about campaigns, advertising and campaigns is Sagittarius. So campaigning for war, campaigning for, lack of travel, campaigning for more warmongering. I would expect that. But if I had to put one phrase to this, it would be false flags. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. Most of them are red, right? You guys know that, red flags. But it can also be about surrendering, because Neptune can be about giving way to something. It can be letting something go. We've seen a ceasefire recently. We also don't really seem to hear much about what's going on in Ukraine. So it's strange that some of these intense situations that have been building in, in Israel and in Palestine and also in Ukraine is kind of easing. We're not hearing anything. It's kind of eerily quiet. I think about bridges and infrastructure and water. I think about where people are traveling internationally. Bridges and barges and anything that holds or contains water, because Saturn is in Pisces, that this retrograde is basically going to create massive flooding. We're going to hear about some major flooding, especially about the second part of December. I think we're going to be hearing about reviewing laws revolving around gun rights and self-protection, because Sagittarius is going to be about higher courts and whether or not they're reviewing or reevaluating what our legal rights or laws are pertaining to Aries things. The military, our physical bodies, our actions, our self-defense. Mars, after all, could be about weapons. So I'm definitely expecting that. I did a little research. I went back and I was trying to find a time period where Mercury was retrograde in Sagittarius and it came into conjunction with Mars. It brought me to December of 1991. I was really little. Some of you guys remember. Some of you guys weren't around. But essentially, in December of 1991, we saw the fall of the Soviet Union. On Christmas 1991, the Soviet hammer and sickle flag lowered for the last time over the Kremlin, thereafter replaced by the Russian tricolor. Earlier in the day, the leader resigned from his post of president of the Soviet Union, leaving Boris Yeltsin as president for the newly independent Russian state. People all over the world watched in amazement as this relatively peaceful transition from former communist monolith into multiple separate nations. Mercury, Mars, it didn't square Neptune, but I could see some similar vibes of what may potentially come, where we start to see that there can be peaceful transitions or kind of letting something go. Now, I also did a little bit more research to see what was going on here. I mean, obviously, this was all happening during the Bush era. And the Bush administration was really focusing on economic and political stability thereafter for Russia and the Baltics and the Soviet Union. They developed diplomatic relations with Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and that went on for some time. And in December of 1991, same year, we saw the signing of the agreement effectively ending the Soviet regime. We saw the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So that all happened at the beginning of the month. And then by the end, that's when they basically made the transition. They made the switch. We also saw John Leonard Orr, one of the most prolific serial arsonists in the 20th century, arrested in California. Mercury, Mars, much like Mad Max, right? With the matches. Mars being flame or fire, so it can be about arson. In the back of my mind, I'm like, are we going to hear more about what happened with the fires in Greece? Are we going to hear more about the fires in Canada? Are we going to hear about these people who are these raging, almost like environmental lunatics that are talking about going and wanting to cut down trees and burning things in the name of protecting the environment? I hope. We saw Ukraine become the first post-Soviet republic to decriminalize homosexuality. Interesting. Mars and Pluto deal with sexuality. We saw the UN General Assembly adopt the Resolution 4668, repealing a previous resolution adopted in 1975, which had ruled that Zionism was a form of racism. Race and culture wars, right? Religious wars, Mars, Neptune. Let's see. We saw... Yeah, pretty much that's it. But the fall of the Soviet Union is kind of a big deal, okay? So we see some similar stuff. I don't know. I'm curious to see what's happening potentially with Ukraine and also Russia in the midst of maybe history kind of repeating itself in some ways. I thought about Sagittarius and the fixed stars in Sagittarius. There's a fixed star around 24 and 25 degrees. But this conjunction is also going to be very close to the galactic center point. And so, that for me was enough to be like, maybe I'll make a whole video on that. I don't know. But the galactic center is referred to as a galactic center point, and it's basically the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And it's located in the direction of Sagittarius, and the exact coordinates are basically around 26, 27 degrees of Sagittarius. Obviously, that might differ depending on what kind of astrology you practice, but it's considered a super spiritual cosmic energy, and it's associated with higher consciousness, spiritual insight, connection to broader universal forces. Some astrologers believe that planets or sensitive points in this area of the chart are aligned with the galactic center and may have a significant influence. It's also just a big black hole. Where there's nothingness, but we have some kind of connection to that where we can receive downloads. So for Mercury to retrograde over that, for it to conjunct Mars, having all of us kind of get in touch with this need to take action and become aware of where we need to do something can be quite positive. It deals with spiritual and cosmic connection and higher consciousness, insight. It can be about a stronger connection to universal forces and heightened spiritual awareness, leading us to transformation and evolution, because we believe with this particular point that it might be seen as playing a role in giving us some insight to our personal journey towards personal growth and enlightenment. It's about a collective influence as well, because when we see transits through this part of the skies, it affects all of us collectively. And it's thought to coincide with significant change or spiritual awakening on a broader scale. And it's also seen as the source of cosmic energies. And it might be about aligning with our life's purpose in a broader universal sense, receiving some kind of higher understanding of existence. So I'm curious to see what happens. I'm encouraging you guys during this transit to meditate, to write, to learn, to study, to explore all these Sagittarius things that you may not understand, things that you may not know, but also it can be about getting in touch with our higher selves or the other side through methods of divination, meditation, past life regression. It can also be about doing some channeling or doing some journaling. Now, the two fixed stars, there's two. One is going to be around 24 degrees Sagittarius. It's called Leseth. And then we're going to have one that's around 25 degrees of Sagittarius, and this is going to be called Aquarius. I might be botching this, but it has about a 2-degree orb, so both of them get mixed into this. I will tell you that because it's so close still to the Scorpion constellation, it can have some challenging kind of meanings. Particularly, I found that what came up a lot was issues with poisons. And so, 24 degrees of Sagittarius, especially with Mercury being there, can be about gathering information, and it can be about being in a position of having some kind of insight. But also it's like obsession, doom scrolling, stalking. It can be about following people. And it can literally bring about issues with nervous breakdowns with an attempt to discover everything or go too deep into what they're investigating. And when Mars comes into conjunction with this degree, sometimes they say there's danger from wild animals, although not everybody is living out in the wild. So it can be talking about issues with accidents, catastrophes. And because it is associated with Scorpio, I see a lot of connections to appendicitis for some people with that natally. For 25 degrees Sag for Aquarius, This particular fixed star is the energy of Mars on the moon, and it is known in some certain situations to cause blindness. And so I think I said in a previous video, this conjunction square Neptune, I think we're going to see some war crimes. I think we're going to see some issues with information coming to light about like using some biochemical warfare and things that can be affecting, literally making people sick or affecting their eyes. But this can also be about violence or self-destruction and mental disturbances that are mind altering. Okay, so I think about like Mercury and Mars in conjunction square Neptune. I'm thinking about things that people are watching. I'm thinking about predictive programming. I'm thinking about mind control, right? I know some of this stuff sounds absolutely crazy, but like, trust me on this, people, turn your TVs off. Even if you're not watching me, go watch something else. Go watch YouTubes of cats playing with yarn, go and learn something, go and learn a hobby, turn off the news. Because there's going to be some stuff going on that's going to be intentionally trying to cause hysteria or fear or getting everybody to jump in on something, to take some kind of action or get angry about something that they will regret. But it's also about distraction. So there's going to be prime distraction going on. Watch for a tendency to be reckless, thoughtless, inconsiderate, or even accident prone. Mercury can be cars, Mars can be driving or heat or road rage. I think we're going to see a lot of that. Not a time to be drinking and driving. You shouldn't be in general, but especially with these transits, because there's going to be a lot of impaired people that are going to be on the road. Okay. All right. So let me take you through Mercury's trek really quick, so we can take a look at that and see what this is going to look like. Obviously, you guys are watching this on the 5th. Mercury is in Capricorn. So I'm going to take you to the first transit. That's going to be on the 13th. And on the 13th is when Mercury will turn retrograde. If you guys saw my previous videos, I said, look, if you have to make decisions, if you have to make moves, sign leases, or do things during the retrograde, work with when Mercury is in a trine to Jupiter. So I'm putting this video out now so you guys can kind of get this going, because we're going to have the first trine to Jupiter on the 8th. So get as much stuff as you can done before this retrograde. If not, be mindful, work with the trines to Jupiter on both sides to be able to help you navigate. All right, so the 13th, Mercury turns retrograde. It's going to turn retrograde at 8 degrees of Capricorn. All right, and 8 degrees is what? Change, transformation, debt, taxes, things revolving around death, sex. The ruler is Saturn. Oh, are we going to be hearing information about, certain governments that are walking back or giving us some kind of insight into these topics? Maybe. I think it's really fascinating just with the New Zealand thing that New Zealand's, it's an early breaking story, but New Zealand has essentially come out and been like, they're not acknowledging or they're not admitting or denying. They're just saying this person had access to information. They released this information and they did not have authority to do so. They didn't go on the defense and say, this isn't true. They just said he wasn't supposed to do that. So I'm curious to see if this materializes as certain people who are trying to walk back information or data. Maybe. We'll see. But this is when the retrograde starts. A sextile slightly to Saturn, a trine to Jupiter. Not entirely too bad. I'll be watching on the 14th when the moon conjuncts Mercury. And I'm looking for some news out in the world on the 14th, revolving around some slowdown effects in regards to leadership or government walking stuff back. That's what I'm watching for. Not too much is going to happen until we get to the 19th, where you will see the second trine between Mercury and Jupiter. So this is the second day where you're going to see some good stuff happening, although it's really, really early in the morning, so maybe even the evening of the 18th, that Mercury will trine Jupiter again. Okay, so this is a day, late 18th into the 19th, where it can be a better, communication day. Still, there's a lot of squares that are building, with Neptune. So to me, it seems a little misleading. And my go-to, I think, with this retrograde with Mercury trine Jupiter is being like, how can I kind of slow things down and be more practical and think about my long-term goals and how that, making those changes right now will better my financial situation down the road, or, strategizing in terms of investment goals, or making some changes in regards to like work schedule. So this is another day that you can have some positive effects from that. I want you guys to look back at December 7th, okay? And as you guys are watching this, you're like, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so whatever you're doing around the 7th, the retrograde is going to bring that back up again. So you're still working through something here, okay? All right. Then on the 22nd, we're going to see the Mercury cazimi. I'll talk about this more when I do my solstice video, but pretty cool to have Mercury cazimi on the solstice day. That almost means like the entire next 3 months, the next season, you know, it's officially going to be winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. For 3 months, we're reassessing, right? Retrograde. You know, do we like what the government is doing? Capricorn. You know, are these systems working? Are people doing their jobs? Are they slowing down? Is it time to really change direction when it comes to career, authority, power? Curious to see what happens. I mean, you know, 0 degrees of a cardinal sign is an initiation point. So Saturn being associated with this, and we're going to see a sextile to Saturn, is I think a lot of people are going to be of the frame of mind, especially here in the United States going into an election year. We need to hold our representatives accountable. Okay, we need to hold them accountable, and it can be hard being somebody who's younger, because you're like, well, what am I going to do? It doesn't matter. Like, it does matter. The things, the phone calls you make, the letters you make, the shit you post on Twitter, the politicians you drag, the people that you call to the mat, the articles that you share, the things you bring up at your town meetings, these things matter. They work for us. I have made 6 now in the last year. Phone calls and emails to local representatives being like, what are you going to do about this thing? I'm the one holding myself accountable for doing this. And I tend to follow where I'm actually living. But recently, here's a new one. Apparently, Texas is on the move. They are now finally, after responding to so many calls and concerns, trying to outlaw chemtrails in Texas, making it illegal for chemtrails to be in Texas. What does that tell you guys? For a lot of people who deny that stuff. What does that tell you guys? Why do we have local representatives saying we don't want to have this? Probably because they're realizing and they'll see this more with the retrograde, that some of their jobs are on the line. I think it's pretty fair to say now that we've got a lot of people in office that are bought and paid for. And I think that's becoming really clear when you start to see that certain representatives, both on a state and a federal level, are not representing what the people need. So call these people to the mat, do your due diligence, go to a town meeting. I'm not saying cause problems. I'm saying do your research. If something concerns you, contact your local representatives, because the emails, the phone calls, especially during an election year, are going to make a really big difference, right? And donate to people whose causes you want to support. Do not underestimate the effects of grassroots funding. Because if you can get a candidate or somebody who really wants to go out and do good work, who can actually generate money and not take money from these big PACs, and they can get 5, 10, 20 bucks from the common person, if we're chipping in, we're doing that work for those people and trying to kind of get them out there, we can make a difference. I say that because not only do we have the cazimi, but it's going to trine Jupiter and the moon. Make a note of the 22nd. This is where you have that aha moment, like the epiphany, about what is actually changing. This is the halfway point through the retrograde. I love this day because it's going to trine an exalted moon with Jupiter, and it makes me feel like the pieces are actually coming together. I think a lot of people this holiday season are going to be like, man, fuck this job. You know, I'm not getting paid enough for this. And realizing that they are maybe investing too much time or too much energy into things that aren't actually benefiting them in the long run. So if you're in that situation, you know, you may be finding that the retrograde is about being like, well, you know, there are so many changes going on at work. Maybe it's best to start looking. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Jupiter's going to go into Gemini next year. Okay. It's been a common theme when Jupiter's in Gemini that we see massive layoffs. We see really high unemployment numbers. That's with no other aspects that we're looking at. So I do feel like, you know, we're going to be fed a lot of really positive information about how things are looking in terms of money and resources, but actually we're going to see increased spending. And whether this is packages and things being sent to other countries to help facilitate proxy wars, higher interest rates, higher taxes, inflation, you know, this does kind of seem like that's what's happening. And collectively with the moon conjunct Jupiter, it means that people are going to have big feelings about what's going on with Jupiter in Taurus. Food, money, you know, resources, the cost of natural goods, that kind of stuff. Jupiter will also be stationing right at the time of this cazimi. In general, though, this tells me that the reorganizing or reworking of the Capricorn area of your chart is really helping the Taurus area of your chart grow and like flourish. Watch for those intuitive downloads taking place on this particular day. Then we're going to see on the 23rd, Mercury will return back to sassy Sagittarius. And when Mercury returns back to Sagittarius, Mercury's in its fall. We're looking at Jupiter. We're like, what's going on with Jupiter? And we really want to pay attention to when Jupiter goes direct throughout this transit, because it does have an impact on what is being said, okay? Now, Mercury returning to Sag means that we're backtracking into the Sagittarius area of our chart, and we're like, what do we need to rework? What do we need to change? Where are we a little bit too enthusiastic, optimistic? Where are we maybe doing too much? Or just needing to kind of reassess something. And on the 26th, we are going to see Mercury square Neptune. This is one of those watch out days. Look back at November 27th, what happened around that time period, where there was a conversation, a back and forth, some information, a video, something that was a little vague. And so now you're returning to it. You're like, didn't I read this? Didn't you say that? Didn't this already happen? It can be like a deja vu moment. And then on the 27th, we're going to see Mercury and Mars come into conjunction right here at 24 degrees. And it's still kind of picking up that square to Neptune. So it's like 26th, 27th, 28th, vague, misleading. I do think this is going to be the extreme weather. I do think we're going to hear that there's going to be a slowdown of travel. And Mars transits are so important because Mars rules the North Node. So not only is Mercury conjunct Mars, means on a personal level, we are reassessing and reworking our actions, our faith, our belief, where we are going, what we are doing. It means that there are big legal cases, lawsuits. There are big, kind of, I guess, like lessons that are playing out, or global actions or conflict that is going to be impacting all of us personally. And obviously 24 degrees is vague, foggy, obscure, ruled by Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter's getting ready to go direct, which means like some kind of act of war is going to influence, I think, food, money, resources, or banking. Okay, so some people who are invested in, like obviously some of the war pig stocks, you'll probably make money. We may see an attack on, something involving a ship. I do intuitively feel like whatever is brewing is to cause some kind of concern for, shipping and receiving, or that there's going to be delays in the supply chain. I wonder through some kind of organized false flag if this is going to manipulate gas or oil. I think that that's very possible because Jupiter is connected to Uranus, and we're going to see that it's prime time right in the start of winter, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, which may further drive up certain costs of natural products, right? Not good stuff. Then we're going to see on the 27th, so the Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars, Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. So for me, this is about bringing together an influence of Mercury's communication and Mars' action and assertiveness. So themes that you want to watch for with this conjunction is intense communication. Because Mars is going to intensify that. We might be more assertive, impulsive, or passionate. There can be a tendency also to focus on ideas, beliefs, and philosophical matters, and heated philosophical debates, cultural debates, racial tensions, like that stuff does come up with these particular squares. This is prime time at the end of December for verbal conflicts. So this could lead to misunderstandings, impatient, lack of diplomacy, may be contributed to heated discussions and debates. I think about how this conjunction squares Neptune is like literally cultural differences, religious differences, misunderstandings in terms of global relations, things that are being falsely translated or misunderstood, and people getting really up in arms about something, not really understanding what it means personally. So I think you're going to see some kind of like campaign to kind of get everybody on a boat to be able to support a certain kind of like cause that they might be blindly kind of getting involved in. It can mean that we are also revisiting past issues. And, with the combination of Mars and Mercury, this can be revisiting past actions, decisions, conflicts. It's a time to reassess and, if necessary, resolve these conflicts. It does, with the square to Neptune, represent where, peace is possible if we're able to be honest and tell the truth, if we're able to have some of this stuff out in the open, if we're able to have these discussions without feeling like we're being canceled or being called a racist or being called somebody who is ignorant or inconsiderate or uneducated or impatient, but you're going to see so much of this going on. And the Mercury Mars square Neptune is I definitely think going to be another wave of seeing people who are getting canceled for being like, why can't we talk about these things? Right? That just seems to be like a common theme. And I can understand why a lot of people are afraid maybe to speak out, because they're afraid of disappearing, right? Whether it's somebody who comes out with some damning information about a politician who unalives themselves or overdoses, or if it's somebody who's afraid that they're going to be removed from media, that they're not going to be able to talk about stuff. This is definitely a theme with some of these squares. And I feel like some of us can also be about starting to kind of ask, like, why is this happening? And like, why is information, or why are people being removed, or why are sources being removed? Some of us may feel like we're also regretting some things that we have said, or some actions or behaviors that come with this particular time period. Now, it's going to be very energetic for our mental state. So keep in mind that it's about exploring new ideas and perspectives, taking risks, although you want to really look before you leap with this square to Neptune. It is possible, because Sagittarius deals with heights and Neptune deals with water. If you're dealing with anything that is about jumping off of cliffs, or, jumping off of walls, or doing a skydive event, like during these particular squares, like visibility could definitely, create more increased likelihood of accidents. So be careful with taking risks if you don't have the necessary clearance or visibility. Definitely a need for independence. And I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that, because Mercury Mars gets people thinking in a way where they're more entrepreneurial and they're more kind of action driven. And this is where, words and actions come together. But I think words probably are still kind of being formulated. And Mars is saying, you know what, stop thinking, just act. I just recently rewatched, what was it? What was that movie? The airplane movie with Tom Cruise. Okay, it'll come back to me. But I just recently rewatched this movie, and I keep thinking about how Rooster and Tom Cruise's character keep going back and forth. And then like in the last leg of the movie, Rooster is saying to Tom Cruise, like, don't act, just think, don't think, just act, like, just do it. And that's very much like the Mercury Mars energy of like, stop over intellectualizing this thing. Like, don't ask questions, just go with your gut, go with your instincts, do it, right? And so I think that that's maybe what's coming up. That's being like, don't question things, listen to your intuition. The trines to the North Node in Aries is saying, get the show on the road. Don't get lost in a state of confusion or being misunderstood. Don't get clouded, one foot in front of the other, be courageous, just go. And I definitely feel like we're gonna experience a challenge with diplomacy. Any Mercury Mars aspects has that, but the conjunction is basically, in its fall, really bringing up the fact that if we are too quick to jump to conclusions or overlook details or dismiss things, we might actually miss something. And with the 24s and the Neptune squares, this is a transit where something may literally go missing. I had a Mercury retrograde last year in this part in my chart, and it was quite literal. It was like a gadget went missing, or something went missing in the midst of a move, and then finally, around the Kazemi, it popped up. And I think about, when I was a kid losing things, and like your teacher or your parents would be like, well, did you retrace your steps today? Did you go back through everywhere you went until you found it? And that always drove me crazy. But quite literally, that might be something some people have to do, right? Thank God for air tags. Put some air tags on some stuff so you know where it's going. Because I think we're going to definitely see gadgets going missing. We're going to see carjackings. We're going to see things that are getting stolen and going MIA. And it would be really, really great to know where some of those things are with the help of a gadget. All right, so then on the 1st, we're going to see Mercury go direct. This is going to be New Year's Day, 2024. Mercury goes direct at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, it's still in its fall. but it's still in a trine to the North Node. And so it's in that sweet spot right at the end of the transit where we're still really much in contact with where we need to show up, where we need to initiate new things. We need to be action oriented. So when it goes direct in aspect to the North Node, we're really looking at the Aries part of our chart and we're like, okay, we got to do this thing, or this thing is coming, or, whatever. This new thing is going to be emerging in the spring. Technically, the Mercury retrograde's over. It's going to hang out at 22 degrees of Sagittarius for about a week. So it'll spend about a week at 22 degrees before it starts to move forward while it's stationing. And then when it goes direct, because it's going to slow down. And so I'm not wild about a pretty extended square to Neptune, but I'm not mad at Mercury trine the North Node. Now on the 9th of January, we will see the third and final Mercury square Neptune. And this is going to be at 25 degrees. And I definitely think we're going to feel this because this is going to be a transit where the moon is going to come into play as well. So we're going to see moon conjunct Mercury, communicating, expressing our feelings or our beliefs or our desires, or a big communication day in the square to Neptune, which is going to be, I think, a situation where we're like, wait a second, where's that document? Or what does it say? Can we read it again? Or like, where did that thing go? And it can be about finally working our way through what has been a very false or misleading or confusing time. We may see that there is a need right around the 9th and the 10th with the lunar transits to be like, okay, it's time to kind of close this thing out, or, get rid of this or scrap it, or, something's going to go on here. You guys will see this right around the afternoon of the 9th. And then on the 14th, Mercury re-enters Capricorn, where I think it's going to do better. Honestly, I do, because it's in a Saturn sign. So now we've got Mercury in Capricorn again. Look at this massive stellium in Capricorn. And when Mercury enters into Capricorn, the moon is going to be in contact with Saturn, January 14th. So this will be interesting because when Mercury is in Capricorn, we're looking at Saturn, the moon conjunct Saturn, and we're like, oh, the new year is actually looking like it's a lot more work than we anticipated. Or I think this is going to be where big companies are starting to issue their layoffs. Mercury Mars can be about initiating cuts and organizing cuts and letting people know that they're doing this literally right after the new year, unfortunately. Mercury is then going to come into its third trine with Jupiter. And I want you guys to watch something. So look at all these planets, Mercury, Mars, Sun, and Pluto. And on the 19th, when Mercury forms the trine to Jupiter, which is, in my opinion, either after a month or so of trying to work out the, Sagittarius Capricorn stuff, then we start to realize like what we've actually spent, or how much things actually cost, or how much of something we actually have. This is when we kind of start to work through what the retrograde was about. Now, I'm not mad at the Mercury trine Jupiter, the Mars trine the moon. I feel like maybe we really do need the whole month to, work through this part of the skies. But I'm looking at the Sun and Pluto coming into conjunction. And what we're going to see in January is the Sun and Pluto are going to move into Aquarius at the same time. So it's going to represent some big, possibly political scandal. I think we're going to hear more about systems. I think of Mercury as like voting machines. I think of, Jupiter as the money in that, or who owns them or possesses them, or who's taking money from what, donors, or who's being funded by what. I'm in the process of putting together a video for you guys that's going to be talking about the various presidential candidates and looking at their charts. And so I will say this just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek. Holy shit, Nikki Haley's chart. That's not me saying I'm for or against it, but being a 29-degree Capricorn sun, and she's in the midst of a Pluto transit, and watching now things starting to kind of shift gears where we're starting to get an idea of like who's supporting who. Big donations coming in for Nikki Haley from the Koch brothers. She seems to be obviously extremely pro-war with background in, government contracts and negotiations, especially pertaining to military stuff. Her family's in it. She's made a lot of money doing it. And I have a really sneaky suspicion that she is probably going to be the push for either the Republican Party or for the globalists. And I'm curious to see if she ends up becoming the person who is kind of the front runner. But really, at its core, this Pluto transit in Capricorn has been about these 3-letter agencies and the FBI and agents and things like that. And whether or not she's going to take Pluto's bait, but I've got my eye on her because I have a feeling. Anyway, so right when this ingress is starting with the Sun and Pluto, we see Mercury trine Jupiter. And so I do feel like it is possible that there is a lot of money flowing into certain companies and businesses because there is some kind of agreement or an alliance or some business merger between big business and government figures. Okay, so I'm curious about that. Banks also, governments and banks and their involvement. And then we're going to see on the 21st, Mercury will leave shadow. Okay, so it leaves that 8 degrees, which means after the 21st, we're not feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde any longer. It's interesting that it happens right when the Sun and Pluto come into conjunction, which is going to basically represent a big boom when it comes to some huge change for all of the masses. It's ruled by what? Uranus. And we're seeing Mercury and Mars trine Uranus. So I think this is about certain powers that be knowing about the direction of where things are going financially or economically. And the fact that during the Mercury retrograde, it's going to start to trickle out. We have to look at global trends with power. We have to look at global trends also with legal rights and, certain lawsuits that are going on. We have to look at issues with like tyranny. I mean, I think in Mercury retrograde in general, we reassess communication. But in particular, this one with the trines to Jupiter is the truth. Getting to the truth of the matter of why money is so majorly tied to politics, why certain wars are being started, who's making money, who's funding them, and also how we all can have a little bit more faith, I think, with Mercury trine Jupiter, and really be investing in things that's going to be about future stability. I hope that was helpful for you guys. Obviously, I will probably at some point talk more about Mercury and Capricorn. This will take you all the way through, I guess, that point. So I'll do the Mercury and Capricorn video at a later date. You can use this until then. Let me take you guys really quickly through the 12 rising signs just to give you some food for thought as to what you're working on during this Mercury retrograde. I'm a whole sign tropical reader for my videos. In my private practice, I use Placidus personally. So for watching this video, you want to listen for your sun, rising, and moon sign. I'll be doing it a whole sign, but if you're Placidus, you can look at where 8 of Capricorn is to 22 of Sagittarius. It might be a couple of different houses. It is, so it actually could work for whole sign. And as a reminder, this is really going to be impacting my Geminis, my Virgos, because you guys are ruled by Mercury, my Sagittariuses, and my Capricorns, because it's going to go through those signs. Listen to all 3, your sun, moon, and your rising sign. That's my advice for you. And let's get the show on the road. Let's take a look at what this is looking like. Take you guys through this and bring you to today. We'll do that. We'll do today. So that way you guys can see. There we go. Okay. And let me make this a whole sign chart. Okay. I'm going to start with my Aries and Aries rising. What's going on, guys? I hope you're doing well. You'll be experiencing a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house of career. Okay, so Mercury will be backtracking in your 10th house, returning to your 9th house. Okay, so you got to look at both houses. In general, Mercury rules your 3rd house of contracts, communications, siblings, vehicles, and movement, learning. And 6th house of daily habits, routines, coworkers, and health. Okay, so Mercury retrograde in the 10th house. Reflect on your career goals and your ambitions. Consider adjustments to your professional path and your communication style at work. You may find that you are one of those people who's like, I'm taking time off work, I'm traveling, right? Mercury's going into your 9th. You may be one of those people who's like, you know what? I'm going back to school. I'm getting new skills. I'm learning something new. I'm connecting with a mentor, right? Yada, yada. That's the area of your chart that this is happening in. Now you're going to see Mercury trine Jupiter, so you have opportunities to change directions at work and make more money. You're also going to see Mercury that is going to square Neptune, which means you're kind of like, can I do it? Is it feasible? Do I have the time? Is it going to work out? These are the things that you're going to be thinking about throughout this particular Mercury retrograde. All right, so let's see what the cards say for you, my Aries. The card that I get is the Seven of Cups. Ooh, this is going to be a sassy deck today. For me, this is very much the Mercury square Neptune. That's like, can I do it? What do I believe in? Is it possible? Can I make this happen? Choices, clouded judgment, many options, illusions, opportunities, wishful thinking, disarray. I mean, a lot of what I've said to you really resonates, I'm sure, with needing to say, okay, if this is my dream, how do I take the necessary steps forward to actually make it a reality? What do I need to do? Work with the trines to Jupiter to make that possible. Look at the sextiles to Saturn to reflect on your goals, to be able to kind of assess what is and is not going to work for you, right? Good luck. Taurus and Taurus rising, you're going to be experiencing a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. It's going to be in a fellow sister Earth sign. It'll be in your 9th house of philosophy and travel. So this is the time to reevaluate your beliefs and your plans for travel or higher education, confirm travel arrangements, and double check any details, especially pertaining to airplanes or traveling for work. Mercury rules 2nd house of money and resources, 5th house of creativity, fun, and also hobbies. Throughout this retrograde, you are going to see several trines to Jupiter in your sign, which means it's really about you being positive and optimistic about change, right? You will also see the activations connected to your 5th house about the way that you look at love, romance, creativity, fun, having a good time. The squares to Neptune can indicate that there is some confusion about, whether or not you're going to connect with friends, see friends while you're traveling. There might be some changes in regards to connections with groups. And I'm really liking the trines to, your sign. I feel like this is like the more that you're optimistic about the future and really kind of tapped in, the easier this is going to be. Obviously, Mercury will drop into your 8th house. So I'm wondering for some Tauruses, are you experiencing a change with the travel plan? If so, are you trying to get your money back? If you're trying to get your money back for something, you might have some issues where, other people are like, well, I don't know if I can pay you, or what do I owe you? Or you could be dealing with like a company that's kind of taking a cut out of something, but issuing you like a partial refund. That's the other way I can look at it. And a Mercury retrograde, the 8th house, is obviously about reassessing your joint resources with another person. So that will come up some way, shape, or form. The card that I get for you is the Moon card, which is like what you don't necessarily see coming. It can represent illusions and things that are hidden, what is unseen. Okay, so unexpected charges, expenses, unexpected challenges in terms of your relationship with other people, missing opportunities to connect with others, or not seeing things so clearly. So watch for that, Taurus. Good luck. We got Gemini and Gemini rising. Obviously, you love Mercury retrograde, don't you? You'll be experiencing this Mercury retrograde in your natal 8th house. And the 8th house is so very much about transformation and change. This is an important time for personal transformation and that of shared resources. Be conscious with joint financial matters. Now, Mercury rules you, so wherever Mercury goes is where you are. So it looks like you're reassessing, gathering up information, data, you're looking through documents, you're talking to partners about money. It also is connected to your 4th house of home and family, and it will retrograde into your 7th house of relationships. So to me, this is a lot of like going back and forth with a partner about home expenses. It can be about reflecting on how much money you're paying for something with this partner. You could be dealing with an inheritance or a family financial kind of slowdown or switch up of some kind. You may actually have to meet with an advisor or a partner or a client or something to reassess some kind of past financial matter. You might be looking at how much your home taxes are. You might be looking at how much your rent has gone up, and you're talking to your partner about how you guys navigate this ever-growing sense of expenses. Now, the trines to Jupiter in the 12th house seem to indicate that you have some support spiritually, or you have some support kind of like from the ethers. And there is a lot of things closing for you, Gemini. You know, Jupiter going through your 12th house means that you are making some major shifts before Jupiter comes into your sign next spring, going into summertime. This can be about letting things go or ending things. And it looks like you need the help of a partner to make that happen. The card that I get for you is the Seven of Coins. I think this is perfect for you. Long-term investments, this is going to be about patience, perseverance, hard work, waiting, harvest, results, and planning. And so sometimes with the Mercury retrograde in the 8th house, it can be like, well, is this yielding, you know, something back? This investment that I made, is it paying off? You know, am I wasting my time? What am I doing? And this can be about not jumping the gun, especially when Mercury and Mars come into conjunction. Do not jump the gun with something. Do not suddenly cut something off. Some of you guys might make some changes specifically to like your job or insurance matters. And I would say just be mindful, really think that through, especially if you're potentially going to experience some like lapse in coverage, right? Don't do anything too quick. Good luck, Gem. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You'll be experiencing a Mercury retrograde taking place in Capricorn in your natal 7th house. And this is a house of relationships, partnerships. Here you get to reevaluate your partnerships and relationships, communicate openly with significant others, and address any misunderstandings. Now, the 7th house can be about reconnecting to clients, okay? Because Capricorn has a more professional vibe. So if you're single, it might be like, okay, you know, I'm actually trying to reconnect with people I've worked with, or I'm trying to reassess launching a new product. It can mean if you've been out of the dating game, you consider getting back in. Can your ex call you? 100%, yes, that can happen. But I mean, that can happen with any retrograde. I think that, you know, Mercury being connected to your 3rd house of emails, phone calls, and text messages or social media, and the 12th house of the subconscious, it means that people might be letting you in on information that you were not aware of. And it can be a sibling's telling you something you didn't know. It could be that a partner surprises you and they tell you, hey, we're going on a trip. Somebody can be reaching back out to you and saying, hey, I want something back. So watch for that. That can be happening. And I think about the sextiles that'll be happening to Saturn, which means that there can be reconnection and talking to people about education or legal situations or maybe even travel. Obviously, having a retrograde in your opposite sign can really bring a lot of attention to other people. So I think you're going to see, especially over the next couple of weeks, as we get into Capricorn season, Sun, Mars, Mercury, all in your 7th house, big themes revolving around other people in your life who you might partner with or who you might be connected to, you know, romantically as well. Look to those trines to Jupiter to really bring an opportunity to talk to partners about your goals, or to really connect with groups of people, or better, kind of connect with friends. The card that I get for you is the Knight of Wands. I like this. This is very Marsy. Maybe it's because Mercury's, you know, retrograde into your 6th house might be about reassessing what isn't working at work, and who am I getting along with, and who is an ally, and who's actually causing problems. After all, Mercury does rule your 12th house of subconscious, you know, or hidden enemies. So you might find that there's somebody at work that's like not your person. There can be some feisty exchanges. It can also bring an opportunity to bounce back and recover, especially if you've been experiencing some health stuff. This can be about a Leo, Sag, or Aries kind of coming into the mix and helping you when it comes to taking action on a certain matter. And this is also about being hot-tempered, okay, or hot-headed. So be mindful that, you know, especially Sagittarius being a sign that conjuncts you, and Capricorn's the other side of your chart, you might kind of feel like other people are being combative and argumentative, and you're like, ugh, just leave me out of this, you know, I don't want to get involved. Watch for the heat, but also know when it's time to step up and say something. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You will be experiencing this Mercury retrograde in your 6th house, where Mercury is actually pretty happy. It's pretty comfortable here. So the Mercury retrograde in your 6th house is all going to be about health and work and reviewing your responsibilities and your health routines. making practical adjustments for a more efficient and healthy lifestyle. Okay, so this can be where you're like, okay, I'm finally cutting back on this habit. Mercury rules your second house of money, resources, food, and spending, and your 11th house of goals. So it's almost like you're going, well, I'm not spending money on this anymore. I'm not buying this product anymore. I'm not supporting this company. It could mean that, you have a rearrangement of your schedule, or maybe you, return back to a doctor's office to get some kind of test. Maybe you return to the gym. Although the sixth house is like work and Capricorn is about professional stuff. So I think for a lot of you guys, it's going to be about looking at, okay, how can I invest in things that can help me with healthy habits and find ways to be able to better utilize my time. It might mean that you're opting for some group fitness, or maybe you're doing some kind of work together with a group of people at work and some team building exercises. You might have to spend a little bit more money on health or wellness throughout this transit, but I think if you're wanting to achieve your goals, it's very possible. I love this for productivity with the trines to Jupiter. I feel like if you need help rearranging your schedule, if you need an assistant, if you maybe need a new office space, like whatever, the changes that you make are actually going to be really beneficial because it's flowing into your Jupiter transit in the 10th house of career, where you can go pretty big, okay? The one thing I will say is similar to Gemini, you have an inconjunct or a quincunx, so it does kind of agitate you because you're like, this is too much work, it's too much details, it's too much having to skim through things or deal with employees, but it's worth doing the nitty-gritty with this particular transit. Now, Mercury will retrograde back into Sagittarius, which is a friendly sign for you. And I think maybe you're kind of like reassessing or relooking at the way that you have fun. Maybe there's a sense of you being like, I'm on a new diet or routine. I'm not going to the bar. I'm not going to get tempted to fall back into that. It also can mean that there is a reassessment going on of your love life. The card that I get is the Eight of Cups, which is interesting because this is 12th house to the 7th. Some of you guys might be reassessing something before you finally walk away from it. And I don't know if that's a person, I don't know if that's a job, I don't know if that's a habit, but you're reassessing something before you're like, boom, I'm done. And I wonder if that's the Mercury-Mars conjunction, where you're like, you know what, I'm leaving this thing behind, I'm cutting this thing out, I'm done with this. And you're gonna see that all of Capricorn season is all about work and productivity. Like, oh my gosh, having Mars there and then Mercury there and the Sun and Pluto. It's like you want your health, or you want your schedule working like a well-oiled machine. So in order to do that, you got to leave some stuff behind. Good luck, Leo. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You love Mercury retrogrades, right? Right. So Mercury rules your chart. Obviously, it'll be retrograde in a fellow sister Earth sign of Capricorn in your 5th house. I like this for you. I feel like this is about you getting more so in touch with creativity and romance, revisiting creative projects, reassessing romantic relationships. I think this is about taking a much more practical approach to self-expression and love, reevaluating, what do I love, right? How do I have fun? How do I play? You can reconnect to lovers. There can also be a sense of reevaluating something about a hobby. Mercury rules your 10th house of career and your 1st house. So some of you guys are like, do I need a side hustle? How can I be self-employed? How are my parenting skills? What is my status? And it will retrograde back into your 4th house of home and family. And so I think this is about like making space to have like a creative office, or making more time in your life for a romantic partner, moving in with a partner, reassessing whether or not you want to stay with somebody, if you want to get back into dating, reevaluating whether or not it's time to make a change and finally take the next step forward in commitment and talk about moving in with somebody, getting married, having a kid. These can be things that come up during the Mercury retrograde. I'm loving the trines to Jupiter because I feel like this is about seeing the bigger picture of the long-term goals with partnerships and relationships. I love this for planning travel in the future. I love this for teaching children or learning a lot about your inner child, or working with your inner child. I'm not a fan of the conjunction to Mars square Neptune because it can feel like you're like, okay, I want to make moves and my partner's like out to lunch, or like I want to feel like I'm moving on with my life and I have a sense of direction, but like where is this person that I'm supposed to meet? Like how do I find them? So it can be a bit bittersweet. You want to just keep working with the trines to your Virgo planets and being analytical and asking questions And the trines to Jupiter in the 9th house means travel, expansion, philosophy, faith, learning. These are all going to make some of your dreams possible. Be very careful because Mercury is retrograding into the 4th house with buying houses, moving, relocating, suss everything out. Really make sure this is what you want to do, that you're moving in or out of a situation with somebody. Ace of Wands is the card that you get, which I feel like is about kind of all systems go, maybe, around the new moon in Sag. Intuitively, you know, this is about a new project or new life or initiating something new. Passion, opportunities, growth, potential, energy. And maybe this is going after what makes you happy. Maybe this is launching something creatively that might be a side hustle. Maybe this is about new life. Maybe this is about a new chapter in regards to your love life, right? But I know that the Sagittarius new moon's coming up, but I think that this is going to be about being like, look, I want to find a home, or, you know, I really want to get situated somewhere, or I want to feel like I'm making big changes in my family. And I think you're going to be initiating that, and then you want to use the retrograde to kind of figure out how that plays out. Very positive card though, because it's about new beginnings for you and being more active. Good luck. We've got Mercury retrograde for Libras and Libra risings taking place in your natal 4th house of home family. This will be really activating your 9th house and your 12th house because Mercury rules these two houses. 9th house is about the higher mind, teaching, education, and travel. And the 12th house about what's hidden subconscious, maybe your dreams, what's hiding in the ethers or in the attic. So Mercury will be beginning its retrograde in Capricorn, okay? So same thing for Aries and Cancer. It's a little agitating because it's going to square you by sign, and you're going to feel like there's some challenges with communication. When it turns retrograde in your 4th house, it means that there's something changing in your home. Maybe you're rearranging furniture, maybe you're moving. It can mean that you're going back home to connect with family. Maybe you're reflecting on family-related themes. And Mercury is going to drop into your 3rd house of travel and movement. So it might mean that, you know, you are reassessing, okay, you know, I'm going to be moving. Do I need to go and look at a new neighborhood? How do I get around? I'm going to be traveling back home. I want to double check my travel plans, or I want to call my sister or my brother or my cousin and let them know I'm coming, so I make sure I get picked up at the airport. These trines to Jupiter are awesome for money, okay, and being able to bring in more resources into your home or having more generosity from family. Transit in the 3rd house square Neptune makes me feel like there can be some scheduling issues. And some challenges in maintaining either health and travel or movement. I'll give you some examples, okay? I'm a Libra rising. I'm in the middle of moving, so everything in my office right now is gone except for what you see because I'm moving, and we're trying, actually, my husband has no idea, but he's trying to get it done before Mercury goes direct, so I'm going to let him do that. We're moving, and so because we're moving, we are rearranging my office and we're moving to a new area that we're getting familiar with. Okay, so that's the square. We've got pets also that are having health issues, unfortunately, and we have had to postpone traveling square to Neptune, and we're having to kind of get rid of, tickets and other things, and we're rearranging our travel plans. It may not be working that way for you. The one thing that hasn't happened, touch wood, is issues revolving around vehicles, and that can happen here because 6th house is service and 3rd house is travel. I have been sick and having issues and not feeling so well, so this has also been really testing my abilities to maintain my schedule and my work and my timeline. So all the things are happening for me. I don't know about you, but I happen to have a lot of midpoints in Sagittarius, so it's really kind of getting activated there. The bottom line is, Libra, you may have to reconnect with family and talk to some people. You may have to make a change in the way that you communicate. You might be making changes in something with travel or your vehicles. You just want to watch how it's going to be impacting your schedule or your health. And you want to be, I think, looking at ways where you can look at this as an opportunity to make money, or through changes, you can have a lot more comfort throughout this shift. The card that I get for you is the Two of Coins. So this is about weighing your options, being indecisive, going back and forth, being like, do I do this or do I do that? Maybe you're keeping your options open. Intuitively, I feel like this is about being like, there's too many choices and do I do this or do I do that? It can be also about multitasking and, rearranging your priorities. Multitasking is a huge theme. What's beneficial is that when Mercury is in Sag, it's sextiling your sign. So it's going to help you be like, okay, now I'm going to make a decision forward. All of this stuff in Sagittarius is trine the North Node. So you need other people to help you. So whether it's like a partner or you need a counselor or a therapist or maybe an astrologer, and somebody who's giving you feedback and helping you push forward is what's probably going to help you move through this time. Okay. Please double check all leases, avoid buying gadgets, cars, signing contracts or leases if you can, because I do feel like there's going to be some major issues and some blind spots. Okay. All right. Good luck, my Libras. I've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You will be experiencing this Mercury retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. And it will be going retrograde in your third house, which is all about communication. So Mercury does very well in this house. Mercury retrograde through the third house, you're going to see miscommunications and misunderstandings. It's very common. Pay attention to how you express yourself and be clear in your communication. Third house, right, deals with contracts, communication with neighbors, with siblings. It can be about business contracts and things that you're signing and that you're agreeing to. Pluto is also in this house, and that's your chart ruler. So it might mean about mental power and like being able to like really hone in on or focus in on something. Mercury rules the 8th house of joint resources and partnerships, insurance. It can also deal with joint spending or what money other people owe you. And it also has connections to the 11th house of groups, friends, and your goals. So you're going to see Mercury first start in the third house, and then it'll retrograde back into the second. So it almost seems like there's something shifting around the way that you look at what your responsibility is, what your goals are pertaining to what? Second house, finances, and money. Now, if you're Scorpio rising that's been experiencing some challenges in finances, maybe you have felt like money hasn't been coming in or you've been experiencing some losses, Mercury going into your second house can bring that back. So it can bring up the opportunity to make money. Well, the Sun and Mars are going to be in your second house, so it's definitely going to be a time where you're spending money or there's definitely some financial changes going on. Really pay attention to when Mercury comes into conjunction with Mars, because that's going to be where you're going to be like, okay, I want to spend money on this thing. I want to buy this thing, or I want to push forward with this goal financially. And it might mean that you have to spend a little bit of money to make money, right? It might mean that you have a misunderstanding with another person about finances or spending. And Mercury will square Neptune several times. So it can be about gambling. It can be about the stock market. It can be about investments where you're like speculating on something and you're not sure if it's going in the direction you want to go in, or you're losing faith on a trade. I also think about how Mercury is going to trine Jupiter in the 7th house. And for Scorpio risings, it's going to be about a partner who's giving you some kind of advice. They're like, be positive, it's going to change, everything's going to work out, it'll be fine. It might mean that you're speaking with or talking to a financial advisor, right? Jupiter and Taurus can be about that. It might be that you are also opening the door more to communication with other people and relationships as well. So much about the Mercury retrograde is about maybe working on the relationship and communication with a romantic partner or a spouse, reconnecting with a sibling. You might hear from a sibling or maybe somebody that you used to work with in the past. And there is some kind of like initiative to do some kind of work together. The card that I get is the Justice card. So this is about partnership and relationships and balance with others. You want to lean into the trines with Jupiter. You want to avoid the squares to Neptune. So it's almost like, don't get lost in clouded judgment on your own. Hear what somebody else is telling you. Relationship, karma, balance, and justice being at play. This can also be about accountability and truths being revealed. Mercury retrogrades are going to do that in general, but I think about how Mercury retrograde in your second house is changing the way that you look at your resources, and it's changing your relationship with money. And I think it's going to be about the way that you think about it. It's about not being too overly optimistic about your spending. It's about trying to kind of streamline what you're investing your time or your energy into, and only things that are going to make you feel good, whether this is jobs, relationships, partnerships, what have you. So the Justice card tells me that you're kind of cutting through some karma in regards to this during this transit. And I would just say that you need to be surrounding yourself with people who are going to be encouraging you to really grow, and whether that's financially or emotionally. Okay? Good luck, Scorpio. We got Sag and Sag rising. You will be experiencing Mercury retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, in your second house of money and personal resources, finances. Obviously, Mercury rules your relationships as well as your career reputation. So when Mercury retrogrades in the second house, you are experiencing a change in direction, a reflection, a shift in regards to money and spending. This is a time to reevaluate financial plans, budgets, investments, and be cautious with any financial investments. Trust me on this. Now, what's nice is that while Mercury is retrograding in your second house, it is trining Jupiter, which means you're reassessing, okay, how much money am I spending and how much money am I bringing in? It can be harmonious because it's trining your chart ruler. So it's about you being more focused on work, productivity. Maybe you're looking at having to spend more money in a new office space that you're renting. Maybe you're assessing whether or not you're actually getting the most bang for your buck at your current gym. It might be that you're reassessing or making changes in regards to your investments at work or with relationships. Any which way you slice it, the trines to Jupiter, I think, are pretty positive. Now, if you're somebody who owns a business, you're looking at probably overhead and costs and expenses, and you're seeing that prices for things are going up. So you're like, okay, am I pricing myself out of stuff? Am I charging too much? Am I not charging enough? So there can be some price increases or decreases going on depending on how you look at it in the second house. Now, when Jupiter drops into your sign, obviously you're going to feel more misunderstood. There can be more miscommunications. There can be a change with your health or your body. There may be a sense of you feeling like it's you against the world. And it's going to be challenging because when Mercury and Mars are in your sign, you're going to be feeling kind of confrontational, kind of agitated. Maybe you want to fight with people. There can be a sense of you also projecting some of this onto family or roommates. Mercury and Mars in your first house is like subconsciously just spewing out fear and getting kind of like freaked out about how changes in your finances or your personal possessions are impacting you or your home. And there can be this fear of like losing too much or burning through too much. Take a breath, take a breather. That's the best advice I can give you. Really pay attention to your body. Be careful with being more accident prone or having issues where you're having arguments or miscommunications with partners because you're getting into fear mode. Okay, once you get yourself into fear mode, it's going to be hard to pull yourself out of it. Take a breath, take a breather, go for a walk, burn off some extra steam by going to the gym or being active, so that way you're not feeling like you're getting overstimulated. Something will change likely about your relationship or your professional status, and you want to be mindful that because you're feeling a little testy with this conjunction, and the square can be about misunderstanding situations, you could put yourself in a position where either in regards to a relationship or a professional relationship, it can be causing some conflict in the home, okay? So be mindful of that. Any frustration that's going on with Mercury Mars in your first house is kind of like, it's more about what you need to change, right? And it can be about getting agitated because you're feeling like something or someone was falsely representing something. The card that I get is the Three of Coins. I like this card. This is about teamwork and effort, collaboration, skills, shared goals, working through things, and pooling your energy, okay? So this square is like, instead of getting frustrated about a changing home situation or some conflict maybe that you're having with another person, like how can you work together as a team through some kind of, team effort. So I think for some of you guys, it's going to be like working with family, working with partners, trying to find ways through home matters or financial matters rather than feeling like it's you against the world, and really being about a solution and not so much about just the problem, right? Hopefully that's helpful, Sag. Good luck. I know it's tricky for you and for Capricorn. What's up, Capricorn and Cap rising? you will be experiencing this Mercury retrograde in your sign. You are the lucky recipient of getting ready to reassess and rework something about how you think, your body, and also your purpose. So Mercury will retrograde in your first house, so there can be some reviewing, reassessing, rearranging personal ways of communication or your health. Mercury rules your habits, your daily routines, travel, and also your beliefs. So as it retrogrades in your first house, similar to Sagittarius, there can be this feeling of being like, or feeling as if you're being misunderstood. So be mindful that that can happen. You can have some health changes because Mercury rules 6th house. You might also be reassessing travel or something about your daily habits or where you're working. Now, what's nice is you're going to see several trines to Jupiter in your 5th house. So it's supposed to be getting you thinking about, well, what do I love and how do I feel and how can I have more fun and how can I better express myself? It can be themes also revolving around your love life or children. Now, when Mercury drops back into Sagittarius, it's going to start squaring Neptune, and it'll be squaring Neptune in your 3rd house. And this is the part of the year where things are really kind of winding down. You know, Mercury, Mars, the Sun in your 12th house means that you're letting go of old storylines. You're kind of clearing things out. You're preparing for what's going to be your new year as we're coming into your birthday season. So whether you're a Capricorn Sun or a Capricorn Rising, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the same experience. And what I like is like really you being in a state of mind where you're like, okay, I can retreat for a little bit, rest, recuperate, think things over. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you're just spending more time kind of by yourself and you're reflecting on how you can do more of the things that you love in this upcoming year. It is possible, though, that you're healing from an ailment, that you're traveling to a foreign land, that you are also not really feeling like communicating and talking to people so much that you want to keep to yourself, and maybe you're keeping something private. The trines to Jupiter makes me feel like there's some new creative project that's about to emerge. Maybe you're about to tell people that you're pregnant. Maybe you're about to tell other people that you've had some big change in regards to your love life. Whatever it is, I do feel like it's really positive. I don't feel negative about it. I think it's about you maybe just keeping some of these things to yourself before they become more visible next year. Work with Mercury sextile Saturn too. I feel like there are some things that you're like, until this becomes more solid, I'm keeping it to myself. And of course, here's this sassy tarot deck saying 2 of Swords. So you're like, ooh, I want to release something. When I've had Mercury retrograde on my ascendant in my 12th house, there's something that I know, but I'll usually keep it a secret. Or there's something that I'm like working on or something that I'm getting ready to reveal, but I decide not to say something. So maybe you're having that. 2 of Swords is difficult decisions, weighing your options, conflict, avoidance, hidden information, confusion, being in between, okay? But the trines to Jupiter is like, okay, but it's getting ready to be revealed, you know? It's like maybe you're excited about getting ready to give somebody a gift or getting ready to release some kind of news. Until Mercury trines Jupiter the 3rd time at the 2nd part of January, that's probably when you're going to be feeling more optimistic about releasing this information, launching a business, telling somebody I love you, that kind of stuff. Good luck, Capricorn. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You will be doing this Mercury retrograde in the sign of Capricorn in your natal 12th house. All right, so first of all, Mercury retrograde in the 12th house is about spirituality in the inner world. This is meditation, dream time. It's about being more introspective, and it's about spiritual reflection. Now is the time to address any subconscious issues that might surface during this period. But you might be asking me, well, how do I do that? Therapy, meditation, past life regression, rest, right? And silence and alone time. Mercury rules the 8th house, which can be about therapy, trauma, subconscious healing, and grief. It also rules the 5th house of creativity, romance, and self-expression. So you may feel like with Mercury in your 12th house, you're like, I am going through a mental change. I don't know what I love anymore. I'm having some agitation with my kids or with a romantic partner. I'm reassessing or reflecting on some kind of loss or experiencing grief. I am kind of feeling a little squirrely because these planets are in your 12th house. Keep in mind, Mercury is going to, it's going to retrograde into Sag. So I think that you have some room for like reassurance from friends a reevaluation of your goals. You might have to go out and about and socialize and do some things. You're going to have some bright and cheery people who might kind of pull you out of that 12th house hole. I think about Pluto getting ready to cross your ascendant. I feel like there's about a huge shift that's about to happen for you, and it's about friends and other people who are encouraging you to push forward. Now, while Mercury is in your 12th house, it's sextiling Saturn in your second, so it's helping you build on future wealth or committing to some of your financial goals or your self-esteem. It's also going to be making trines to Jupiter, which will be in your 4th house of home and family. So these big changes that are coming are going to be about your home. It's going to be about your future life. It's about a home that you're building or you're growing. Maybe it's about where you're researching or considering moving to. It can also be about endings and release points and letting go, because this is happening in water houses. So is a career getting ready to shift or change? Maybe. Do you need more time for rest and recuperation to heal? Maybe. But I think that when it's in Sagittarius, it's going to be easier to navigate because at least it'll sextile your sign. You want to watch for the trines to Neptune because there can be a sense of not having the same values as another person. Borrowing and lending with friends can get a little tricky. Working with groups of people when it comes to financial planning can be also really tricky. Try to keep your wits about you with Saturn in your 2nd house and be very frugal and cautious about buying into pyramid schemes. Don't let people try to convince you to invest or buy into things because it may be too good to be true. And I think the trines to Jupiter are about really relying on your sense of home, family, and security, feeling grounded. The card that I got for you is the Tower card, which is obviously not a fun card. And so I'm wondering, with Mercury in conjunction to Mars, is it that there's getting ready to be, like major changes at work? Are you quitting? Are you getting ready to, realize that it's time for you to leave one type of career, move on to the next one? Are there some, Tower moments where you're like, oh my God, this is over? Not unusual when you see Mercury retrograde in the 12th house, not unusual when you see Mercury conjunct Mars, not unusual when also you see the 8th house Lord being activated. But here's the deal. Once you clear this stuff out, it's then possible for this new thing to emerge. And so this might be about this mental kind of knowing that something's coming to an end and that you're getting ready to embark on something brand new. So with Pluto coming back into your sign here in this next month, there's a huge personal change that's coming. Don't stress about the change. You can't fight it. Roll with it, right? Go with it. Try to be in a position of seeking support from home and family. Try to embrace some of these changes and see it as an opportunity for something new that can be really good down the road. You just can't quite see the forest through the trees right now. Good luck, Aquarius. For you in particular, I'm rooting for you. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. So you're going to be doing this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn in your 11th house of friends and goals and groups. This is about re-evaluation of friendships, involvement in social groups, ensuring clear communication with friends and colleagues. I feel like this is where friends from the past can come back, people who can help you with work or business. I feel like this is a really strong time to reassess some of your personal goals, especially when it comes to networking with people professionally, connecting with clients, reassessing your goals when it comes to relationships. If you've been feeling like you've been out of sorts socially, this might be a time to reconnect with people, and it can be a wonderful time to do that. I think about how Mercury will sextile Saturn in your sign, so you're being seen as somebody who's more mature and also independent. I think about trines to Jupiter, your traditional ruler, where there can be opportunities to have great conversations, connect with the right people, maybe travel or learn something from others. If you're wanting to join a professional group or network, it might be a time that you go back and you try to do that. What's tricky is when Mercury retrogrades back into Sag, and it's in your 10th house, and it's going to come into conjunction with Mars. And so maybe it's like you meet with a friend or a group of people who help get you in, and they help you make a job change. And so when Mercury goes into your 10th house and it conjuncts Mars, you're like, okay, I got to cut with one way of making money to, take this new opportunity. And it's going to square Neptune. So you want to be really careful, because it means that there can be some misleading situations or misunderstandings with people at work or with relationships. It's particularly tricky for you. So look at what's been happening the end of November. Sometimes with the Mercury retrograde in the 10th house, we go back and we make a change at work, or we return back to somewhere we used to work. I wonder if you're connecting with people who you've worked with in the past and you're like, do you have anything for me? I want to make a job change. And they help you do that. But also, like, the question is, how's your health, right? Are you sure you really want to go back to that? Are you overly enthusiastic that it's going to be different this time? And is it actually going to be different? There can definitely be some conflicts and some issues also with superiors and people at work with Mercury and Mars in conjunction. You might find that it's hard to get along with everybody, and there can be some misunderstandings with bosses or even with partners. Lean into the trines to Jupiter. If you're having problems in one area of your life, professionally or with relationships, lean on groups of people and friends who can help you kind of find the way forward, who can help give you those words of inspiration and guidance. And really also be super stoked, I think, towards the end of this retrograde, or the end of the month, Jupiter goes direct. So you're going to find that whatever ended actually made way for you to like connect with the right people, the right groups, to really kind of get in touch with some of your goals and make magic happen. But sure, misunderstandings with friends, yeah, that can happen. But I think this is about more a reevaluation of your goals, connecting with people who can help kind of point you in the direction of what's actually going to be the most lucrative and successful. And at least while Mercury is in your 10th house, it's trining the North Node. So it's like making the job change might actually be best for you financially in the long run, or it might actually give you the most likely shot at independence. The card that I get for you is the Knight of Cups. So this can be about you, Pisces, or it can be about a Scorpio or a Cancer. This is about creativity, listening to your intuition. This is about using your imagination, being charming, graceful, negotiating, and being diplomatic. Now, believe it or not, this can also be for chance connections with romantic partners. So it's interesting, you know, Mercury rules relationships. It might mean that, you know, a friend's trying to set you up with somebody. It might mean that you change jobs and then boom, you meet like the love of your life. It can mean that through changes that are going on with the direction in relationships, you're more aware of like what your purpose is in regards to your status. And maybe it's being like, hey, I need to prioritize relationships, or hey, I've been doing too much relationship stuff. I need to focus more on my career, and I need to surround myself with friends and people who are going to help me feel inspired. I think that's definitely the case for a lot of you guys. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Pisces. Good luck. And yeah, you guys let me know. I mean, obviously, I always get a kick out of reading your guys' comments and your stuff. I really appreciate your support. I know some of these videos are really long, and I hear some really, really, really great emails, and I get some great messages from people who tell me how some of this stuff manifests from them, and that they go back and they listen to it throughout the month or throughout this transit, and they see how this unfolds. I think I touch on this also during the Mercury retrograde transit in my monthly horoscope. So you guys will have to check those out and see how that resonates. But please do leave me your comments. I'd love to hear how this is manifesting for you and how you're feeling about this particular Mercury retrograde. I think it's going to be a positive one. And I look forward to that connection to the Galactic Center and the downloads for all of us to get the show on the road and realize that actions speak louder than words. It's really important for all of us to be brave in the midst of this transit and speak up and speak the truth, and not get lost in the echo chamber of all of just the chaos that's going on right now, okay? So stay walking in your guys' faith, in your spiritual practice, keep preaching about the truth, and also take grounded steps forward during this particular transit. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you guys like my content and you want to book a personal reading with me, click the links below in my description. You can go to my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. You can see my schedule on booking now in February and March of 2024. I'm a busy lady, but you guys can also order reports on my website, which I email to you, or you can catch me here on Fridays where I do lives. We do live readings by donation on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific. 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time zone, sorry. But you guys can catch me here. I'll be back here on Thursday and Friday and Sunday. Like a robot, I'm always here bringing you guys the latest news with what's going on with the cosmos. Please do consider heading over to my website, sign up for my newsletter. There's all kinds of goodies that are going on right now. We have got a New Year's Day special where I'm going to be touching on the transits of 2024. So you guys will get a little sneak peek of that on Thursday. I'm putting something together on the most important transits for the 12 signs in 2024. I'm going to give you guys an appetizer, but if you guys want to join me, do join me for the live taping on January 1st ring in the new year, and let's talk all about next year's transits. All right, I'll leave it at that. Happy Mercury retrograding. I hope it's a good one for you guys, and I'll see you all back here very soon. Take care.